This is Death or Prison, brought to you by leanonmeusa.org. We bring you stories of hope and encouragement.
Hello, I'm Joe Pryor, President and CEO at Crossroads Prison Ministries. For over 40 years, we have provided correspondence Bible lessons and caring mentors to people in prisons and jails. I want to invite you to join us on this journey. You may ask, why should I sign up for a correspondence Bible study? Well, the answer is simple. Just as it is important to strengthen your body with good food and exercise, and your mind with new learning opportunities, it is also vital that you spend quality time growing your faith in God. Crossroads is a Christian program, but open to you. Whether you are a believer in Jesus Christ looking to strengthen your faith or simply exploring faith and what it can mean to your life, we're here for you. We want to come alongside you as we study God's Word together. We don't charge for our program. All you need to do is write to us at the address on the screen, and we will begin sending you lessons. I encourage you to give us a try. Thank you, and I hope to see you as a student very soon.
Welcome back to the Death or Prison podcast. Well, today here in the studio, we have Joe Miller with us. I'm the host, Oswald Newbo, and along with me is my side co-host here, Elmo Golden. Joe, in the last episode, when we was talking with you, you was telling us about how you had went through the military, some of the things that you experienced post-military. You even spoke about going to church, seeking out spirituality, but only to hear people whispering behind you, saying some negative things, and it turned you off and you never went back to the church. 2 weeks after that, you were in the newspaper for an alleged crime that took place, right? That will ultimately change lives. Would you like to talk about that time in there? Like, you've never been in trouble before, but here it is, you facing some serious things. Would you like to kind of talk, what were you going through at that time in your life? And I do remember you mentioning drugs at some point, but could you just give us a little overview of what was going on with Joe?
Okay, yeah, because in the Air Force, when I was working surgery, I was one of those people that were privileged because we just were able to pay attention. So they made me, I worked 2 nights on and 4 nights off. And for about 3 years of it, and we would have to call in the nurses, anesthesiologists, and all the, and go prep and do all the stuff, everything that an intern or resident could do, but weren't there. So I had to do that for them. But here's the thing, towards the end, with my last 6 months left, I had a phone call from my ex-wife. Now, the wife, she said, when you come home, don't be surprised because I won't be there. She said, but pick up Amy, our daughter, and Jason. No, pick up Jason because Amy, she'd already taken for a visit to her parents. I was crushed, man. I thought, what's this all about? So I went home, picked Jason up, and went to the house, and I was that kind of separation. She wanted to try a different lifestyle. So some girl where she was working at was gay, and they went off to do their thing for a little while. And then when she came back, she kind of got violent. I'll just say that. And I left. So that was the start of the downhill spiral. I was crushed. I missed kids. But she didn't want me there anymore. So I said, okay. So that's really where it started from. That's when I started seeking for some kind of solace. I don't know how many people are going through a divorce or separation, man. When you don't want it, it's a crushing blow. It left me just numb. So I did the last 6 months living with another girl because I'm done with this one. So here's how it happened. I was living with a girl and decided I was going to go to Miami. And so this girl wanted to come with me. I said, okay. So we got to Daytona, and 2 guys had sexually abused her. She was standing on the street corner, and she came and told me what had happened. And I never believed a man had a right to hurt a woman, no matter what she looked like, what she talked like. There was no reason to do what they did to her. So when I found out from this girl where they lived, that's when I went and they wouldn't answer the door. So I crawled in the window after them. And I was really kind of a crazy, dangerous person. And eventually took him outside and took him to a place out in the woods under gunpoint, of course. And that's when I killed him because I didn't think any man had that right to do that to another woman. And with that, I don't know what else I can say about that. I was willing when they the next day when they oh, you know what, I can tell you because I took the girl to the hospital. And when I was sitting there, and there was a pastor in there with someone from his church, and we were talking. I just felt like telling him, I don't know why. And he said, "Well, you know, what you really need to do is go pray." I thought, okay. I didn't know they had prayer places in church, in hospitals, so I went and prayed. And I got on my knees. I said, God, if you're real, if you make sure she's okay and get her home, I'll do whatever you say. And so when I went back to the waiting room, he said, when I finished the story, he said, well, you need to turn yourself in and tell the truth. And so I'm driving. They had they do tests for rape and stuff like that. And then because we were from out of state, we didn't have any money or insurance or nothing. So they just released her. And I was driving towards somewhere and got pulled over because it was a car that had a license from Pennsylvania. It was temporary license. So back then they were pulling people over a lot. And took me to the jail because I didn't have a driver's license, of all things. And I actually, when they shook me down, that pastor called and said, because they took her back to the hospital because she kind of went nuts on him. And he called and said, the officer called me back up. He said, the pastor called and he said that he would make sure she got home safely. I said, okay. And I can explain it now. I didn't know what was going on then. I got watery-eyed and I didn't know what that was, and this. So I pulled a bullet out. When they shake you down, you ain't supposed to have a bullet in your pocket. So I just pulled the bullet out. I set it down on the desk in front of him. I said, the two men that did that to her, I just killed them. So he didn't respect. He just kind of tore the paper off, wrote down, murder one, will tell me about it. So I wasn't trying to hide nothing. I'd already told God, if he was real, I'd tell the truth. And so, they from then on, they did different stuff to try to find out where the bodies were. They did hypnotism, they finally figured out where they were and got the two bodies. That's when it changed to real, not just accused of, but had committed. So that's how it started. From then on, I think it was D-Land. No, I don't know, one of the towns in middle of Florida, and they drove me back to D-Land where the county jail was. Back at that point, it was really kind of a mystery to me because I'd never been locked up before. I was kind of numb, and they kept me on Thorazine so often that I couldn't sleep, but I really couldn't really pay attention that well. So when you asked, how did I think back then? Part of that was numbed out because of what Thorazine does to you. And I hope that makes more sense.
That makes sense. So you're now you have to go to arraignment, right?
Yeah.
You're standing before the judge, and he's arraigned. You're being arraigned, and he's reading these charges off to you. What was going through your mind?
I can tell you exactly what it was. I was waiting so I could plead guilty. I did it. Didn't try to hide from it. That's when I found out you can't plead guilty to a capital offense in Florida. The public defender stood up. I didn't have a chance to say anything. He said, my client pleads not guilty. Because you can't, they don't let you do that.
Right. And yet now you're there, you can't really speak on that commitment you made to God about you being guilty, and you want God to reveal himself to you.
Yeah.
At any point during the time you were in the county jail, did God ever start revealing himself to you?
Yeah, he did. I mean, because I didn't really finish the story of when that pastor, because when he said, I said, does he forgive a murderer? Because the first question was that I know God. I didn't really know what it meant, but I said, well, yeah, I'd been reading about him. And they talked a little longer, and they're always getting around to say, do you know Jesus, right? And I didn't. I said, well, I'd been reading about him too in this little bitty New Testament. But he looked me in the eye and he said, so what's the problem? He saw that broke down, wore down, tore down person. And when he said that, that's the second time my eyes got watered up. Crying was not my game. I had guns to people's heads and all that other stuff, stupid stuff gangsters do. And I looked him in the eye and said, does he forgive a murderer? Now, that was a life or death question for me. Does he forgive a murderer? And he looked me right in the eye and he said, he even forgives murderers. Now, when he said that, the power of God went down on the inside of me, and I was truly born again. Old things passed away. Behold, all things became new. And from that day on till right now, I don't know how many years, 35 plus 13 on parole and off parole now, but I've never had another desire for drugs or alcohol at all. Not one. You could make a magnet stick to a piece of wood first before you find any desire in me to ever do that. Didn't deliver me from consequences. I mean, I was a new creature in Christ, but I was sentenced a year later to 4 life sentences.
4 life sentences.
4 life sentences. And then they didn't have Lake Butler. That's the only place we went to back then. There wasn't any other reception centers. And so they were overcrowded. So when they took me straight to UCI, straight to the Rayford. And I was still dressed like a normal person in between fences. And so I had to go to the laundry to get dressed in the blues. And that's where I started from. Now, did you want to hear what went on when I got there?
Old school Lake Butler, North Florida Reception Center. Lake Butler, Florida.
Yeah, but they drove. Yeah, it was. They had K-Wing Slim, and they had some other ones that were like really dangerous back then.
Charlie.
Charlie.
Yeah, we know
killing
that.
people. Yeah. So, when I got to the Rock, it's called the Rock, and I went to Lulu Blitch Hall, which is their chow hall there. And I walked in, and it was a big place, and you could sit where you wanted to back then. One whole side was full of people. The other side was nobody there. So I'm going over there. So I sat down, and, they had like 600 pounds of weights back then. I mean, these guys were big. So one of the guys come out from behind where the cooking was being done and leaned over the table. He said, sissy's what they called homosexuals back then. He said, you look like a sissy I knew at the East Unit. He said, if I was to walk up and kiss you, you wouldn't kill me for making a little mistake, would you? Now, I was just Christian enough. I wanted to give him an honest answer. And I didn't raise my voice. I didn't stand up, blow my chest out, and do any of that stuff. And I thought, well, I'll give him, I'm not. He didn't know how dangerous I could be. So I got up. I said, I just got here for killing 2 men for making a little mistake. And I never saw him again. He disappeared and never saw him again. I wasn't trying to threaten him. I just told him the truth. But that's how I started being my time in the Rock. A week later, I went to the West Unit. And another guy who was a homosexual was doing all that funny stuff. I said, listen, you can do whatever you want. I'm a Christian and I'm not with it. So, and he said, if I get my friends and we catch you in the shower, I said, well, you know what would happen? I said, you would have a fight on your hands. I knew I couldn't whip everybody, but I did. I looked them right in the eye and I said, you know what? And I meant it. I had some rough edges yet. God worked with me. I said, but if I live, I'm killing you. He went to the sergeant, got moved to a whole different dorm. And I did like I'm talking now. That's how I talked to him. I didn't try to scare him. I didn't try to threaten him. I didn't raise my voice. I just told him the truth.
Joe, you ever run across a guy named Ricky White or Carl?
I know Ricky. Yeah.
You know Ricky?
Yeah, I know Ricky. Actually, when I was at CTP down at Everglades,
right.
Ricky was there running the veterans program, so I went to that. And AVP, I went to advanced, what's it called? Alternatives to Violence. He was helping run that. Yeah, I know Ricky.
Yeah.
when we were stalking the women in the women's prison, Ricky came and tried to talk. He knew the warden real well back then.
Yeah.
So we're not doing it there, but yeah, I know Ricky.
Yeah, he did a podcast with us early on, probably maybe about a year ago, and
Okay.
he also him and I are co-workers.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was another young man that works for us too. His name was Carl Pugh. They may have been.
I know Carl Pugh, man. What a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I knew all those thugs.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna make sure I tell him we met. So during the time that you're at the East Unit of the Rock,
I was at the Rock. Yeah, East
The Rock,
Unit was
okay.
just across the road. Yeah.
right? What year was that, and how long were you there?
Okay, I was there 10 years. The first 10 years.
Mhm.
And you know, one of the things, that's where God started really working with me. Now, here's something, a lot of people look at me crazy, but it's really the truth. You don't see any, I don't know if there's any in the rest of the United States, definitely not in Florida, but God opened the door for me to teach children's Sunday school.
Mm.
Actually go out across the street into the visiting park, had little signs and a cowbell, and the kids would walk around and we'd get all the visitors, kids that wanted to go with a guard, of course,
Mhm.
back across into the prison, across the street, up into the chapel. And I'd spend an hour with them playing guitar and jumping down. Of course, I used felt board because that's all we had back then. But I taught that about 3 years, children's Sunday school. Sure did.
Right. So, I mean, of course, most of our audience, they wouldn't understand what type of prison you were in, number one, and what type of how it operated back in those days. I remember when they used to have traveling boxing teams and traveling basketball teams. You were actually treated a little better, more humane, but also the respect level because of what would happen if you were to get out of line with guards or with your comrades inside the prison.
From what I'm hearing is faith played a part of your prison sentence. Like you walked through there in the beginning and you just stuck to your guns. Even in the eyes of thugs, you still stayed true to the Lord and stood on your square.
Right.
In the beginning, I heard that you did a long time. So help us go through that, because you did your first 10 at the Rock, I heard, right? But there was a long journey. Take us through the rest of the journey.
Okay. Then I was transferred, went to Tomoka. And because every time they had mass movement, which they did, I was always in a job that had put a hold on. The first time I was in Pride.
Right.
And the second time I was in the first ever faith-based dorm. It started at Tomoka. And there's one other time, what was it? Oh, I was still in the faith-based dorm. But anyway, I finally, because of an event that happened at Tomoka where a female guard got killed, a guy named Enoch killed her. And they said that anybody because I had 2 for murder, 2 for kidnapping, because I took them outside. So anybody with a kidnapping charge couldn't be in Pride and they couldn't be in the chapel. And soon I got transferred to Tomoka. And I was there like 22 years, like I say.
22 years.
Yeah. And that's where that's when that thing at Pride happens at Tomoka, not UCI. But then they sent me to Columbia Annex. Back then, that was a transfer unit. It was like Butler. And it changed into a prison halfway through while I was there. And so I had a progress report, and the officer said, so what do you want? What can I do for you? And I said, well, that'd be my question to you. What can you do for me? And so I wasn't trying to be real super slick, but that's what I asked him. And he said, well, what do you want? I said, well, I kind of go to Everglade. He said, Everglade? He said, why do you want to go there? I said, just want to go there. So I thought at least if I was there, I could get, CTP was the only way of getting out of prison. And so he put it in, but soon after that I had a parole interview where they send someone and they send in what they think could be happening. But see, in the meantime, Ken Cooper, he and I were very close, and Ken was talking to the parole board about this. And so that's how it really got, they had a parole hearing, and Jack Murphy was there, and Ken Cooper and all my friends, Frank Constantino too. And so they got approval to get me sent to CTP, and then have another hearing a year later.
Can you identify CTP for us, for our listening audience? Could you tell them what it is, because they don't know?
Okay, that is Dr. Shern, a wonderful lady.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Shern started a program for men who had been in it for a long time, institutionalized really, and how to help them prepare for getting out of prison. Correctional transition program, because formerly it was called FIU,
Mm-hmm.
but they changed the name from FIU to CTP while I was there. But it's a way of us unlearning all the stuff that we had learned how to survive in prison.
Right. When you say a long term, give it what's a good number, a round number? What do you mean by long term?
Yeah, because Marta Villacorta, when the first life sentences, the mandatory life sentences were coming up with 25-year mandatory, she and Dr. Shern started preparing this course, and it meant somebody who was parole eligible after 25 years. Not that they could go home, but they were eligible to be considered for parole. Mm-hmm. So one of the things the parole board did, if they thought they might let you go, they would send us down to Dr. Shern. And from there, they would either parole us or we'd have to spend another 2 years. Most did get out from there, though. So she did a great job with the college students coming in on like a Monday night. And we had parties, and we were learning stuff, what we had to do.
So you became acclimated, right? You got acclimated for the streets now, getting away from the institutional way of thinking and thinking about the streets. Right. I take it if you're here talking to me now and you're not in a cell, that means you did get paroled at some point, right? And that day, and tell us, going from that day and going forward, how has life been? What's been going on with you?
You got it, because we didn't talk about it. It's too long of a story, but God gave me a wife back in I met her in 81, and she was a friend of the family, citizen volunteer, pen pal, just an answer to prayer. But when I went to the cell, the dorm, I said, I just got parole. I'll tell everybody. And so from there, when they took me out to the gate, first the computers were shut down, but I was one of the few people picked to speak to 5,000 role models. I don't know if you ever heard of that one, but I was one of the speakers for that. And so the assistant warden said, normally we can't let you go if the computers aren't able to let me know I can identify who you are. But he said, I know you. So he said, I'm going to override what I'm supposed to do and let you go home. So he signed off on it. I was scared to death they weren't going to let me go. And I thought they were going to come around and make me get these street clothes off and put my blues back on. So I went out. They had a sergeant, female sergeant. She had to put her hand behind my back, small of my back, and push me. She said, go on now. She pushed me through the sally port because, just something about it. It's somewhere, it's a no man's land. You're not supposed to ever be there. So she had to push me through it. And then my wife was actually there to pick me up after she waited for me 30 years. That's the kind of woman God gave me. God said, God, you make the choice. I'm tired of doing it alone. You make the choice. And he gave me someone. She's still there. She's praying for us right now. She got half the world, because she emails everybody, say he's going to Lowell, he's going to Marion, he's going to Columbia Annex. This one, he's doing a podcast. So they're all praying for us right now. So I'm looking at this wall that you don't see. I'm seeing my earned bachelor's degree, my earned master's degree, and my earned PhD. Okay. And I'm looking at my ordination. When I was ordained, Ken and Pat, some of the people actually, assistant wardens. So anyway, I'm now with my friend Ken Cofield, died of COVID several years ago. So I'm with his widow, Save a Man Ministries, and going to the other prisons, talking to men. But also we're now in our second, we're finishing 2 years of trying to help women in Lowell Annex and Lowell, Maine, that are parole eligible to prepare, because they didn't have any idea what it is to get parole, how to do it. So we've been spending the last 2 years helping them. I go there Monday and Tuesday and trying to help them with Kathy. We're trying to get them ready where they never knew people cared about them from before.
Awesome.
And then the name of your ministry is.
Oh, mine is hear from God, but I don't operate on that until I get Kathy. I promised Kathy that I would help her after Ken died, because they did it together beforehand. So I'll be going on my own at some point. I do go play guitar and lead praise music for Prisoners of Christ in Jacksonville, the transition house here. And I do other things, but that's pretty much it. I talked to DJJ kids and went to the juvenile detention center. And there's a lot of other things, but it's just too many things to tell you. But God keeps me busy.
Right. Well, I'm thankful for you sharing your story with us, and you're doing so many great things. I'm inspired. I've heard your name precedes you in a good way, in a great way, which is good. And I'm just thankful for you sharing your story, Elmo.
And me as well, Joe. It's an honor to meet you and just to see you and the longevity you have, not only with Christ, but with you keeping your commitment and going to see the guys. You understand what it means to not have a visit or to not get a letter or to not have anybody outside to talk to. And just by you showing up and all the volunteers that showed up inside the institution we were incarcerated, it means a lot. So remain in that powerful state that you're in now. And we just thank you for not only just you but your wife too. We had an earlier segment talking about relationships, and just to hear what you're saying has just inspired me to make sure that when I do get married, that I have a godly wife like that. So what you say, put that boot on you.
Yeah.
Amen. So, brother, you just continue to keep on. If you had one thing to say for our viewers, what would that be?
There was a guy in Timbuk who used to walk around saying this all the time. He'd say, "Hold on, help is on its way."
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. This is the Death of Prison podcast, brought to you by Lean On Me USA. We're here with our brother Joe Miller, the evangelist of all times, going in and out of the prisons, ministering to the brokenhearted, causing the blind to see, the lame to leap. And I'm also here with my brother, Oswald Newbold. This is the Death of Prison podcast. Around here, we say, choose life.
He's the good shepherd with a staff and rod. Precious is your worth, the prisons, the years, the pain and fears. He has delivered no more tears. Now we cheer, blessings flowing like a river.